Good morning and welcome to part two of Talk About Teens. This time we are getting together with Elisabeth Stitt of Joyful Parenting and Deborah Ann Davis of Awesome Mom Tribe. And I am Clarissa Constantine, founder of the Parent Tween Connection. And we decided at the end of 2020 that we wanted to collaborate to bring our mutual backgrounds together to bring you workshops once a quarter. And so this is our second quarterly workshop of 2021, and we are focusing on making summer count. I think that's particularly important as we were brainstorming what we wanted to bring to you. We thought making summer count was particularly important this year because of the craziness that we've had with COVID in the last year and helping kids get back to some kind of normal as we're able to open up restaurants and activities and things that have been shut down. So Elisabeth is going to start us off talking about some ideas about working with your middle schoolers, and then Deborah Ann is going to take over and help us with the transition from middle school into high school. And then I will take over and talk about what to do with your kiddos who are in the later high school years, looking at life beyond high school, college, career, whatever those may include. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And our first presenter today is Elisabeth Stitt out in California. I do love the fact that we have professionals spanning the country here, collaborating. Thank goodness for Zoom. That's one of the good things I think that's come out of the pandemic is we're a lot more open to these kinds of things. So Elisabeth says, when you want to raise happy, healthy, and productive kids who are prepared for whatever life throws at them, she is your go-to parenting coach and expert. Kids don't come with an operating manual. So if you think you're supposed to know how to parent them, or that it's just automatically like built into your DNA, that's just not true. With over 50,000 hours of working with kids and parents to support her in her work, Elisabeth can guide parents through pretty much any situation. Parenting is tough enough in normal circumstances, and it is a skill, which means it can be taught, it can be learned, and it can be practiced. Author of Parenting as a Second Language and a longtime teacher with the Redwood City School District out in California, Elisabeth Stitt brings more than 25 years of working with kids of all ages to the work she does with parents. Through her talks, like today's, and her workshops and her webinars, Elisabeth brings her warmth and wisdom to parents around the world. So Elisabeth, start us off.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. Really happy to be here with you ladies this morning and happy to be talking about summer. It's coming. It's coming, and don't we deserve it after the year that we have had? Really, truly. I hope we always want to have a great summer and to work with our kids to have a great summer. But this summer in particular, we need to push the reset button. And my talk this morning is focused on middle schoolers. Deborah and Clarissa are going to think more about the high school concerns. And it's not that what I say this morning can't also be used with your high schoolers. But with your middle schoolers, one of the biggest differences is that while school doesn't count in terms of their grades, we still want them ready. So what's step one in creating your best summer ever? It is absolutely 100% critical that you engage your kids in the process. That's what I love about the middle school age is that kids can really step up and begin to take ownership of the different pieces of things. So you're going to want to start by saying, kids, we need to plan so that we can have the best summer ever. So give it some thought, give some thought as to what you want summer to look like, what we've got going, what is still restricted, and we're going to sit down on Sunday afternoon and we're going to have a conversation. So let them know you're going to have it, prep the idea that they should be thinking about things. And it may mean that you start having micro conversations with the different kids along the way, but you want to kind of come to this meeting with this expectation, label it the best summer ever, so that they begin thinking what would make the best summer ever? And then that's where you start. You start by saying, you know, what do we want it to look like? What can it be? And I want you to pause and take a deep breath with your kids and just go over what has the year been. And whatever it's been, I want you to highlight the silver linings. And I know it's been a super, super, super tough year. And at the same time, I know that there probably have been some silver linings. I find, for example, a lot of parents and families have been able to have dinner together more often. And we know that that is a powerful force in kids' lives, right? Sitting down with your kids and having dinner is correlated with all kinds of positive outcomes. So if you've been able to do more of that this year, that's been a big, big, big silver lining. I'm curious whether or not you feel that having fewer activities to run around to has served your family in some ways, right? I know that kids have been bored. I know it's been hard to keep them entertained. I know that they've wanted to see their friends and that they've maybe been restless. And at the same time, when I consider how much time kids spend going in the car, being driven from place to place, and how much time we as parents sit around waiting for them. I remember somebody saying to me once as a teacher, like, you're so lucky you get the summer off. And all I could think of was, there was that period when my kids, I was thinking of when my kids were 10, 12, and 14. What did summer look like then? It looks like driving one kid in one direction to one activity and then across town to the other camp, and then coming back and picking up the second kid whose camp started a little bit later, and then kind of waiting and not being sure if I could start doing anything, certainly not feeling that I could relax because I was going to have to drive and get the other kid, the first kid I dropped because they were in just a half-day program. I spent the summer running around like like a chicken with my head cut off. I hope that during COVID, you've had less of that. So maybe that's something that you want to consider and bring forth into summer, right? How can we have our best summer ever and do lots of really cool, great stuff and not be chickens with our heads cut off? For your kids, you're going to have to do some research, right? You're going to have to figure out what is actually open and where is their space. And I know I was looking, I have, my kids are grown and flown, by the way, so I'm long past this. But I do have a friend of mine, in fact, it's her 9th birthday today, who's coming to stay with me for a week this summer. And so I was looking for summer day camps for her because I do continue to need to work. And it was really restricted. So if you haven't started looking, you need to start looking. And you might have to manage some disappointment for your kids around that. So what else is possible in creating the vision? What can you guys create yourself? All right. I know that how do I get my kids motivated is a big, 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 big question. I have a middle school moms group on Facebook, and this is a question that comes up all the time. Like, oh, my children are so motivated. They don't want to do anything. All they want to do is be on their screens. They're so apathetic. And indeed, that lack of drive, that lack of energy, that feeling of like nothing counts or it's not connected to anything. I don't know. I think that's characterized the year for a lot of people. My daughter is in graduate school, and she's a person who, from the minute she could crawl, had a goal to go to and was driving towards it. And she's had the hardest year. She said to me, Mom, I have about 2 or 3 hours of focus in me a day. And that's it. And it just feels so heavy, the weight of this. And I talked to her this week, and she's feeling the shift. She's feeling we've now all had our vaccines. Things in California, at least, are getting a little calmer. We're feeling a little bit more hopeful. So I'm sure your kids are beginning to tap into that too. And you want to pull into that energy. You want to build it up. Motivation does not come from the shoulds. It doesn't come from, oh, I have to do this. It doesn't come from what our parents want us to do. Motivation comes from connecting our daily activities to something bigger than ourselves. And it might be a dream, like, you know, I want to travel here, or I want to go there, or I want to become this, I want to study that. Or it might be a value, right? It might be, I'm just thinking, I've got my parenting hat on for a moment, and I just think of the value of creating family connectedness, right? There's a lot that I'm willing to do and to give up and to sacrifice for myself in order to really lift up my value of family connectedness. So try to tap into your kids, and it might be a love of nature, for example, or something else. And you can be as hokey when it comes to values. Google a list of values and print it out for your kids and sit down and have a conversation and have them circle or star what are the, let's say, top 10 values that they think are important to them. And then see if you could connect that value to some activity or something else. If they value kindness, well, what are you doing to show up as being kind in the world? What are you doing to promote kindness in the world? And that's part of connecting it to something bigger than themselves. We'll talk a little bit later about, what are your daily activities? But if your kids haven't been volunteering in some way, and I know for me, one of the silver linings has been to see kids who have started projects. They've raised money. They've made signs for our essential workers. They have been doing sidewalk art to make people feel more cheerful as they take their daily walk. That's all connecting to something bigger and outside yourself. And that's a big motivator, right? When we feel that we are making a difference in the world, when we're having an impact on the world, that's an enormous motivator for kids. And so often when we're busy lining up their schedule and telling them what to do and saying these are the shoulds and these are the have tos, we suck that out of them. So summer, you don't have school, it's a little less structured. You can help decide what it's going to be. This is your opportunity to light this fire under your kids about something. What's something that they can do? Something they can contribute to the world. That is going to help pull them back into focus. It's going to pull them back into action. If maybe they've just been sitting on the couch, not wanting to do anything, you haven't been able to get them to go out to do anything. So this motivation step, this is a big one. And this is like you as cheerleader, you as the leader of your family. And part of the way you can do it is to come with, what are you excited about? How are you going to re-energize yourself? And what are you going to connect it to? Okay, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of what days are going to look like, first of all, you need to figure out what are your non-negotiables, right? Things like the dog needs to be walked. That's been non-negotiable all year. It continues to be non-negotiable. And at the same time, if you don't have a Zoom call for school that you have to be on at a certain time, maybe walking the dog can be a little bit later. So the hows of it might shift, but the fact of it is not going to shift. The dog still needs to be walked. So you need to figure out what your other non-negotiables are. And at the same time, there are ways that we can engage with kids to ask them to step up. So I know a lot of families have success with the when-then when it comes to limiting screen time, right? When you have done A, B, C, D, E, and F, then you may have your screen time. And here are some suggestions. Okay, so normally I'm on my soapbox in summer about it's summer. Kids need downtime. We need to just relax. We need to have nothing to do. We need to have time to inspect our navel. This summer feels a little bit different to me. We've had a lot of navel inspection time this year, and so maybe we don't need to do as much of that this year. Academically, our kids have lost a lot. This has not been an ideal way of learning. Yes, some kids have benefited from not having to face the social pressures at school and the business of being able to, show up and turn off your screen and not be seen, not have to have on your game face, has lowered some social pressure. And at the same time, skill-wise, I feel like a lot has been lost. And so we do need to keep going. And here are the two absolute bottom line requirements that I would make. One is kids should be reading every day. And if you have a reluctant reader, then you start with whatever works. If it's the graphic novels that work, go for graphic novels. If it's cooking and reading recipes that work, go for cooking and reading recipes. And I've learned to cook. That's been a silver lining of COVID for me, is that I learned how to cook. I really was not a cook. My daughter used to say, "Mom, you make the best plain pasta." That was about my cooking level. But one of the things I've really enjoyed is reading the New York Times food column every day and how excited people get talking about food. So even though that comes under the nonfiction category, it still feels super accessible to me as a way of reading. And of course, following a recipe, not just reading recipes, but following recipes are fantastic. Cooking is a really great academic skill because you have to pay a lot of attention and you can't leave out the details and you have to read to the end, right? As teachers, we're always telling our students, read to the end of the assignment before you start. Have you ever had a teacher play that joke on you where there's all these complex things and then, yeah, you play that joke on you? I bet you do that joke to your kids all the time, Deborah. Yep. Right, you get to the bottom line and it says, put your name on the paper and hand this in. That's all you have to do to get your points today. So cooking is a really great academic skill. So be creative about what nonfiction reading can look like. If they're doing a project, right, reading a manual on how to do something or getting instructions. It does not always have to be YouTube. Not that YouTube doesn't have fabulous resources, but you could actually print stuff out and require that they read it when it's connected to some kind of project that they're doing. Okay. Math is another important one, and I have later on, I have a slide with some resources for online math if they haven't been doing it. Just good old-fashioned math workbooks will do the job. I will share it with you. On my bucket list is to pass Algebra 1 with an A. I squeaked by with Algebra 1 with a C-, a courtesy C-. Thank goodness my Algebra 1 teacher was the father of a friend of mine. That's how I got through Algebra 1. But someday I'm gonna get an A in Algebra 1. So one summer I took home the Algebra 1 workbook from school, and I did a page of math every day. And I have to tell you, some days it took me the whole day to get through the page because that is how slow and poor I am when it comes to my math skills. It doesn't have to be online. A good old-fashioned workbook will do the job, and that may be something you can get from school, or it's probably worth the investment to make it. Okay. If you have not gotten your kids to do chores happily and cheerfully during COVID, great. We get to push the reset button. We get to have a new chance. And you can make the argument that now that you don't have school, now that you're not on Zoom 6,000,000 hours a day, we have some time to contribute to the family. And often family contributions is a nice way of phrasing it. I don't have a problem with the word chores. It's like, okay, whatever, it's a chore. However, it has a negative connotation, oh, such a chore. So it can be a family contribution. Here's how I like to approach chores. I like to sit down with my kids and start a big old long list of what are all the things that need to get done in the house. And I break it down into subcategories so that, cook dinner, which is fun. I've been having fun cooking dinner, but it's still a chore in that it has to get done, right? Think of all the steps, read the recipes, decide on the menu, write the ingredients list, check the ingredients list against what's actually in the house, go shopping, bring in the stuff from the car, like that counts, like that is something, right? That's one of the hard things when your children are grown and flown is you no longer have slaves to bring in food from the car. Put the food away. Do the food prep. Cook. Set the table, make things nice, and then clean up, right? There are a lot of steps that are just associated with that one activity that it needs to get done every day, which is great because it means you can divide all those activities among your children. I'm sorry, if you only have only child, that wasn't very good planning. You didn't get enough slaves for you there. So now that you have the list of things to do, now you put it on the table or on your whiteboard or wherever it is, and you look at your kids and say, how can we divide this up among us all so that this is fair? And what I love about middle schoolers is that with training, they are 100% fully capable of doing any household chore. With training, there's nothing hard about all those tasks. I used to think that cooking was hard. I can now say with confidence, cooking is not hard. Yeah, follow the steps. It's systematic. People have spent hours and hours and hours working on writing recipes in such a way that they are easy to follow. So your kids can learn how to cook. And by the way, your kids can use an oven and use a stove and use a knife, right? I don't know what you were doing when you were 12 or 13. I was babysitting hours every week, trusted with small children by myself. Your children can use the stove and the oven and the knives in your house. Okay, so when we do it that way, we look out the list, and then we kind of we look at the list and we go like, how can we divide this so that it is fair? And then you get quiet and you wait. Because in the face of your benign quiet and patience, your kids kind of begin to realize they have to step up. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to step up. Now, if you've got really reluctant chore doers, my personal recommendation is to team up. So any one of those chores, right, are either being done in tandem with a buddy, a chore buddy, and whether that's your sibling or your parent. Personally, I like doing parent-kid pairs because it's fun and it gives us a chance to praise our child for something which is really needed and for their competence, right? So let's just pause here a moment. If your child writes a brilliant lab report and they get a big shiny A on the top, we don't actually care. We don't actually care about the content of their lab report. We're not excited. We might be excited about their A, but we're not actually excited about the content of the lab report. On the other hand, when you turn around and all of the groceries have magically been put away in the right place, I don't know about you, but that's very exciting to me. That's like, yes, like, oh, that got done and I didn't have to do it. So if I'm beginning to get out the recipe and to, chop some onions, and in the meantime, I'm chatting with my kid and things are getting put away, to me, that's a happy, joyful, together, connected time. So chores are not that you have to go off and do this time. Chores can be we get to have fun and be together time. And I realize that maybe cooking is more fun than dusting or vacuuming or cleaning the toilets. But as leaders of our family, we have the power to get excited about getting moving and having a party and rocking out while we do our vacuum cleaner dance. And again, when we bring that kind of energy to it, then we're all working together, and then we all get the pleasure of going like, oh my gosh, doesn't this living room look lovely? This really looks like a place you'd like to live. All right, so as parents, we have the power to do a lot here. I also want to put in a plug here for volunteering. It goes back to that idea of connecting to something bigger than ourselves and getting motivated because of that. We need to be connected to the world right now. And volunteering is a really good way to do that. And it's a really good way to feel connected to not only our family, but to the world, and to feel needed and to feel important. I interviewed a woman named Jackie Simmons recently, who her mission is to prevent teen suicide. And she offers 4 questions we can ask our kids to prevent teen suicide. And the 4th question is, why did you stay? Right? If you considered leaving, if you considered taking suicide as a way out, why did you choose to stay? And that question, and being able to answer that question, that's what prevents the suicide. And knowing that we are wanted and needed and appreciated out in the world is a big answer to that question, right? Getting straight A's is not going to be why I stay, right? The fear of having and the pressure of having to get straight A's might be why I feel overwhelmed and feel like I need an exit. But knowing that, somebody's waiting for the meal that I deliver, or their day has been cheered up by the cards that I make, that is what becomes my reason to stay. Okay, so math tips. We really do want to be focusing on our math skills. Tip number 1, see if you can get next year's curriculum and be looking at that, be previewing that. One of the things that teachers have had less opportunity to do this year is to probably teach study skills, right? If I'm in the classroom working with my kids and I've got the textbook and I have their textbook in their hand, it's much easier for me to really go through and to teach them how to read a textbook, because I almost don't like the word read for reading textbooks, because it's such an active, interactive task. And for your math curriculum, that is even more true. But having a physical math book and being able to go through, read the subject headings, look at the drawings, try to get the flow of it, talk about the ideas, can be helpful. Number 1 thing you can do as a parent always to support math skills is to teach finances and money. And that both goes from the day-to-day thing, like now that your kids are helping you shop, what's the budget? What do they think it's going to cost? Teach them how to look at the price per unit and to compare. I love it when there are items and one is like a price per ounce and the other is like you could get a container of grapes, for example, and it's per container. It's like $2.99 each. Well, more like $4.99 each. And then you can maybe you'll find grapes that are per pound, and you're trying to say what is the difference here. Those are great math skills. That's really your job to teach. Yes, teachers are going to teach it at school, but you're the ones who are in this place where you can make it real and make it connected and make it important to what's going on. Okay, whoops. Yeah, think of other ways you can teach concepts, projects, carpentry, sewing, cooking. These are all great places to use math skills. And then finally, I do have some online resources. Again, if your kid has already been using something during the school year, probably the easiest thing in terms of not having to get up to speed and frustration of learning a new program is just go right on using what they've been using, if that's okay. Khan Academy does a combination of videos and places where you can work out the thing. It is free. IXL was recommended to me by some of my middle school moms. I have to tell you, I went and I looked at it and I didn't see, but this is a paid program. There is a fee and I didn't pay the fee. So I don't know like what the full robust program looks like. The part I looks like they'll provide the problems, but I didn't see where they were doing any teaching. However, it got, I had 2 or 3 moms chime in saying that they thought it was a great program. So it may be worth checking out. And Thinkwell and Mathway also got some thumbs up. Somebody else suggested online math games. Okay, people, if you can convince your child that their math games are part of their screen time, then go for it. I'd rather they were doing math games during screen time than playing Fortnite. On the other hand, in general, if you can limit their screen time, they've had so much of it this year. That's a fight worth fighting. It really is. Okay. Finally, I have an ebook to offer you called 25 Ideas for When Your Kids Say, I'm bored. And it's an ebook, and because it's an ebook, it has live links. So for each idea, it has links to places on the internet where they can get more support or more information. And these are meant to be things that kids can go off and do on their own. And some of them are little things, but some of them are sort of more lengthier, complex questions. One of them is to create a COVID chronicle. So here we are at the end of this. Historians are going to be looking for documentation, right? 50 years from now, historians are going to look back, 100 years from back, they're going to look at COVID and they're going to want to know what were people thinking and feeling and what did they experience. And wouldn't it be fabulous as part of your family history if your kids were to go and to interview different family members and to say, what has the year been for you? And if that's included some loss, writing it up and interviewing people about it may be a way for your child to process some of that. And it's a kind of tribute to the person that they have lost. So there's some possibility here. And again, when we're talking about motivation and connecting them to something bigger and something more important, that might be a way of bringing them in. Okay, didn't mean to get all serious there for a moment. Hard to think about what this year has been and the weight of it without thinking of the more serious side. Hopefully your family has been healthy and safe and well. And for you, or for your kids, that kind of project would be, more kind of saying, what are our stories? What were the highlights? What were the crazy things that happened? What were our memories? Weren't the all family Zoom calls great? Okay, that's it for me. You have the capacity to be the leader in your family and to pull your kids up to create the best summer ever. Thank you.